There are boundaries we have yet to pass.
A box?
Not just any box.
And forces we have yet to learn.
It opens doors. Doors to the pleasures of heaven or hell.
Frank, who likes to indulge in acts of pleasure and pain, gains access to an infamous puzzle box that opens a portal to another world where the Cenobites will take Frank and reveal his darkest desires. But at the same time he thinks this might be a bit too much and tries to escape. Frank's brother and his wife Julia, who Frank had a passionate affair with, move into Frank's house, where Julia somehow summons the flesh-deprived Frank, who then entices her to bring unsuspecting men to the attic and be brutally killed so Frank can devour their blood. The Cenobites, a group of horrific-looking people fronted by Pinhead, come looking for Frank, whilst wearing sadomasochistic gimp gear, whilst hoping to gain a few more passengers on their sadomasochistic, violent, gory way. Released in 1986 by New World Pictures, Hellraiser, a horror film like no other, was a worldwide hit, spawning a franchise that keeps the studios happy. Hellraiser, a film that will tear your soul apart. It's grim, it's disturbing, erotic, it's romantic, if watching people kiss with no flesh is your thing. So here we're going to check out 10 groovy facts you may not know about Hellraiser.
Hellraiser. Satan's done waiting. Groovy.
Number 1, based on a novella.
Hellraiser was based on the novella Hellbound Heart, written by Clive Barker and first published in 1986 in the anthology book Night Visions. The plot concerns a man who goes by the name of Frank, seeking pleasure, for want of a better term, and does so by getting hold of the puzzle box. The Cenobites pop up, with Pinhead actually being referred to as the Hell Priest. There's lots of torture involved, people having psychotic sex, and people wearing somebody else's face as a mask whilst doing their thing. It's no wonder my head's messed up. Most of the characters from the novella appear in the film, but there are some notable differences, such as Kirsty in the book is not related to Larry, but the screen Kirsty is actually his daughter, making for some uncomfortable scenes. Although the Cenobites jump from page to screen, Pinhead was much more prominent and vocal in the movies, whereas in the book he is only mentioned briefly.
Number 2, Pinhead.
Pinhead, the lead Cenobite, articulate, disturbing, and absolute soul reaver, is the only character to appear in all of the Hellraiser movies, which there are more than 10. He has become an iconic figure in the horror world and stands high upon the pedestal of classic 80s horror villains such as Freddy Krueger, Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees. British actor Doug Bradley was cast as Pinhead, but this was not the first time Doug Bradley had played Pinhead. He first played the character in a stage play written by Clive Barker called Hunters in the Snow, all the way back in flares and jive arse in 1973, when casting began for the role of Pinhead, and Doug Bradley was the obvious choice. But seeing as this was going to be Doug Bradley's first time appearing on screen, he thought it would be best if his face was shown, and actually asked could he play the removal man, who appears for about a minute in the movie.
Imagine that, if Doug Bradley had shrugged off the genre-defining role of his career. Maybe, if he had his way, he would have had Pinhead moving a couch into the corner of the room.
When referring to the character, the cast and crew would call him Pinhead. Clive Barker was not happy with this, as he felt it belittled the grand, dignified character he actually called Hell Priest, but the name stuck, and it wasn't until Hellraiser Part 3 he was actually called Pinhead. Clive Barker did address the Pinhead nickname in various comic books he wrote, and also in a follow-up Hellraiser novel, The Scarlet Gospels. I do feel kinda bad for naming this chapter Pinhead, but if I called it Hell Priest, some people would probably think, Hell Priest? Who the bloody hell is he talking about? So, Pinhead it is. The makeup for Pinhead would take an enduring 6 hours to apply, but eventually they got it down to 4.
6 hours spent sat in a chair having latex and prosthetics meticulously applied to your face. Must have been so uncomfortable and draining. It was probably more enjoyable to have the actual nails hammered into your head.
Pinhead wasn't necessarily going to be the main Cenobite, as 2 of the other Cenobites, Butterball and Chatterer, had more dialogue in the film, But the actors found, once they had the makeup applied, they could barely talk, so their lines went to Doug Bradley, which helped cement the Pinhead character in people's soul-teared minds long after the movie's finished. The character has become a worldwide icon, and for a character that only has around 10 minutes of screen time in total in the first movie, then that is an incredible achievement. All down to the wonderful writing, stunning character design, and above all else, an outstanding performance by Doug Bradley.
Number 3. The extremely bad movies that inspired Clive Barker.
When New World Pictures bought the rights to Hellbound Art, they also got the actual author Clive Barker himself to direct. Clive Barker insisted on this stipulation after he saw 2 adaptations of his own work which he absolutely hated. Underworld, 1985, a horror movie based on Barker's work.
Welcome to the underworld.
Who are you?
I'm not a god.
I'm Oriole.
This is Doodoo.
And Raw Red Rex, 1986, was so bad according to Barker, he didn't trust anyone else to direct Hellraiser, which was to be Clive Barker's directorial debut. I used to like Raw Red Rex, but it hasn't aged well, and I remember being excited to see Underworld because it had Clive Barker's name attached to it, but it was an incredibly bad movie. It was pure dog droppings. Thankfully, we got Barker's glorious, gory, intelligent masterpiece that is Hellraiser. With a budget of just short of $1 million, Barker was set to go. He wanted to call it Hellbound Art, but the studio said no way, Barker, as they thought it would be confusing or even regarded as a romantic movie. Yes, I'm sure all those people looking for a nice romantic movie were going to the one with a nail-headed creepy bald man in gimp gear on the poster. Barker changed it to Sadomasochist from Hell.
For some reason, it was rejected. Not sure why.
One very English lady working on the movie told Clive Barker he should call it What a Woman Would Do for a Good Fuck. Well, that would have been awkward when being asked at the cinema what movie you're coming to see. But, as you well know, it was eventually called Hellraiser.
Number 4. The inspiration for the Cenobites and the Box.
The look of the Cenobites are unique and very different to many horror villains before or since. They're a mix of the bizarre, seductive, erotic, yet grotesque, with their leather-clad flesh-revealing garments and repulsive features. How was Clive Barker inspired to create the look of these hell-worthy beings? Well, seeing as you asked, let me tell you. In the 80s, for research, so you know, Clive Barker went to a underground S&M club in New York called Cell Block 28. It was seemingly hardcore, with people in gimp masks, and no doubt several crotchless garments. The kind of place you'd probably find your mum on a Saturday night. Go and ask her, you'll be able to see the truth in her eyes. Barker saw lots of spanking, and people inflicting some serious pain to other consenting adults. What he saw inspired pretty much everything about the Cenobites' look. Clive Barker asked costume designer Jane Wildgoose to design the costumes with the instructions to show revealed areas of flesh with torture wounds showing, and to also look like latex-clad butchers. Clive also had the help of special effects expert Bob Keane, who has worked on such films as Waxwork, Candyman and Hellraiser 3, to help design the terrifying, repulsive look of the Cenobites. He did some incredible work. Once you see them, you'll never forget them. Bob Keane met up with Clive Barker weeks before shooting and had several discussions on how the Cenobites should look. Pinhead was originally supposed to look similar to Shuna Sassy, the peacockian looking creature from Nightbreed, but this would have took several days to do, and with budget and time being an issue, they settled on a more simplistic but ultimately iconic look. Football came about because they wondered what a fat man would look like under all the latex and masochistic wounds. It was as simple as that. The design of Chatterer, played by Nick Vince, was due to the fact he struggled with the cold and his teeth would shatter, so the demon with a cold may sound like this. It was a complex and effective prosthetic design and purposely built for Nick Vince.
I've only come to this S&M club to do some research, honestly. I mean, what sort of people come to these sort of places? But Dad, is that you?
The design of the female Cenobite, as she is credited, or Deep Throat to some others, was pretty much accurate to what Clive Barker asked for when he drew the character. The puzzle box itself is a beautifully carved, intricate and for me a perfect representation of how I and many others think the box should look. Clive Barker's grandfather was a cook on a ship and brought back an unusual puzzle box that originated in the Far East on one of his many travels. This inspired Barker to write the box into the story of the Cenobites, looking for pain and pleasure deprived consensual victims. But as to whether Barker's grandfather had Hux tearing his nuts off, is not for me to say. We live in a mysterious world. Special effects artist Simon Says designed and built so many of the boxes for the movie from wood and brass. They took a long 8 hours for each box to create, and they were rather delicate and sometimes fumbly for the latex covered Cenobite actors to hold. So Simon Says would lie on the floor underneath the actor during shooting, just in case the actor dropped it, so he could catch it and save himself 8 hours making another one. He boxed clever.
Number 5. What ended up on the cutting room floor?
It's fair to say Hellraiser is one of the most disturbing films you could lay your eyes on, so it's no surprise the ratings board weren't going to go easy. The strange thing is, it was the erotic scenes that were cause for concern. I suspect it's because of a mixture of sex and violence, which was frowned upon on the screen. During one of the flashback scenes involving the characters Julia and Frank, it was originally more explicit and scenes of sodomy were cut. If you don't know what sodomy is, then I suggest you ask your mother. She will probably know. Some spanking scenes were also removed. The scene where Julia bludgeons a man to death with an hammer was also trimmed, so there were less hammer blows, reducing the intensity in a very brutal scene. Scenes where Julia would stick her fingers inside Frank's wound were also cut out. Now, depending on which country you watch this, you may get differing versions. The UK cinema release was uncut, but by the time it reached home video, it had 4 seconds of hammer blows cut, but they've since been reintroduced. The US release was uncut. In Australia, around 2 minutes of cuts were made, but they were reinstated for the home video release. In Sweden, who do seem to have a major acceptance problem when it comes to the ratings board, as they've made some major cuts or age restrictions to movies such as Near Dark and E.T. So Hellraiser didn't stand a chance. A staggering 4.5 minutes were cut during the violent scenes. In Germany, several cuts were made, such as all the scenes apart from one of Frank draining his victims of blood. Larry's dead body is seen briefly in a blink and you'll miss it moment. Any close-ups of Frank's hands with ups were cut. The hammer scene was mostly excised, leaving just a couple of shots of Julia swinging the hammer.
Number 6. The rejected soundtrack.
There was Clive Barker browsing in the Forbidden Planet comic store in London when he got chatting to a man who went, and no doubt still does, go by the name of Stephen Thrower. He told Barker about his band, Coil. Barker heard some of their tracks and liked what he heard, so asked Coil if they would provide the soundtrack to the Hellraiser movie. This was surely going to be the band's big break. They set about recording the songs, but would eventually recoil in horror. New World Pictures did not want to use the music, and composer Christopher Young, who had previous experience composing for a horror film, The Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2 movie, was brought in to replace the soundtrack. Rumour has it was due to Christopher Young being an in-house artist, so they would not have to pay royalties out. Coil were understandably disappointed, but they did release the Hellraiser tracks on a CD titled The Unreleased Themes for Hellraiser. It's Coil's themes that I've been playing whilst I've been narrating during your editing, and I'm surprised at how good this unused soundtrack is. It's gothic, truly atmospheric and downright creepy, especially the track Box theme. Have a listen, it's a fantastic collection of music and such a shame it wasn't used. Christopher Young's music is sweeping and epic, and I feel both Coil and Young's music change the vibe differently enough. It makes you look at the films from a different perspective. I'm actually torn, if you'll pardon the expression, between which soundtrack I would have preferred. Have a listen to both and tell me what you think.
Number 7.
We'll tear your soul apart.
First, the unreleased soundtrack, now an unreleased video game. In 1990, Color Dreams, a California-based games company notorious for producing unlicensed video games for the Nintendo NES. Gaming companies would have to pay Nintendo a huge fee to submit their games to them to be evaluated, but Color Dreams refused and released games that could get around the lockout Nintendo chip. One such game that was on the lineup to be released was Hellraiser. In 1990, Color Dreams released press articles stating they were making such a game, and even had various adverts in the usual related medium such as gaming mags and comic books. Nintendo threatened to stop supply of official games to retailers if they supplied these unlicensed Color Dreams games, so most of the retailers turned their back on Color Dreams, and Hellraiser, the game, which reportedly would have you play as a character trapped inside the puzzle box trying to escape, was never released.
Number 8. The studio interference.
It goes without saying that all studio-produced movies have at some point had the studio breathing down their neck like a heavy breathing phone caller and tried to call the shots. Hellraiser was no exception. When making Hellraiser, the boogeyman of such iconic movies as Halloween, Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street were making a killing at the box office. So the studios, upon finding out Pinhead was going to be a rather intelligent, dignified presence who just happened to have nails stuck in his head, decided this was not what they wanted. They told Clive Barker, who was a first-time inexperienced director, actually learning the job whilst doing the job, to make Pinhead either silent, just like Jason and Myers, or to give him a few wisecracks, like Freddy Krueger.
It would have been weird seeing Pinhead as a wisecracking boogeyman. It probably would have spouted such lines as, "Is that a hook in your ballsack? Or are you just happy to see me?" Nah, it wouldn't have worked.
Thankfully, Barker stuck to his guns and made Pinhead the articulate, stylish character he turned out to be. The studios also insisted on casting stunt performers in the roles of Cenobites, as they'd be cheaper, but Barker was against this, as he wanted proper actors to convey the lines and body language of the Cenobites, to give them a lot more je ne sais quoi. One time, Clive Barker found out 3 studio executives were coming down to the set to see what was going on, and Robin Vigian, the director of photography, told Barker they will want to take control. He's seen it happen on loads of movies, so Barker decided he was going to shoot a very gory, bloody scene. So when the studio execs stood there watching, they suddenly had loads of fake blood splash all over their nice new clothes. This made them think twice, and they got the hell out of Dodge, never to be seen again. A few weeks into shooting though, the studio did sadly get their way. They saw the footage and were mightily impressed. This made them think the film could do well in America, so told Barker it was now to be set in America, even though you can clearly see it is set and shot in England. Sadly, this meant most of the British cast had to be dubbed by American actors. It's bad enough when we see foreign films dubbed by English speaking actors, but now we have to watch English speaking actors being dubbed by English speaking actors. Doug Bradley as Pinhead though was thankfully not dubbed. His performance remains intact. I do feel sorry for the actors, especially Sean Chapman, who played Frank, one of the most integral characters in the movie. He hated the dubbed version of his character, as he said it had no emotion. Sadly, there is no version with their original authentic voices intact.
That was such a stupid decision on the studio's behalf. Why they thought dubbing a British speaking actor with a US voice would have worked is incredibly stupid.
You'd never catch me doing something like that, no way.
Number 9. The rights issue.
The story has it that Clive Barker sold the rights to Hellraiser and the Hellbound art in the belief that the film would probably not do that well anyway, and it's so unique and less than generic, but as we all know, Hellraiser went on to be a worldwide success. There have been several mostly woeful sequels, which Clive Barker has had no say in. In 2021, Byglass Entertainment owned the rights to the Hellraiser movies, and would do till 2023. Congress copyright laws state a creator can only try and reobtain the rights 35 years after giving them away, and they must submit a claim 2 years before the rights are due to terminate. So Clive Barker is, or was depending on when you watch this video, in the process of suing Spyglass for the rights. There is a remake being developed in 2021 though by Spyglass, although confusingly HBO are making a Hellraiser TV series, so how they also have the rights to Hellraiser is not quite clear, but maybe the fact that the TV show differs from the movies and Pinhead will actually be played by a woman, maybe it will be rolling Pinhead. There is now a mad rush to get both of these productions out before our very torn apart eyes, just in case Clive Barker regains the rights.
Number 10, Pinhead vs. Michael Myers.
Yep, you heard that right. There were actual discussions with Dimension Studios, who then held the Hellraiser movie rights, and Doug Bradley himself to star in a Pinhead vs. Michael Myers of Halloween fame movie. It obviously reeks of commercialism and pretty much just a cash grab, and I personally don't think they should mingle on the screen. They don't fit, yet at the same time part of me would have liked to have seen this. I'm genuinely surprised by the fact that Clive Barker himself said he would write it and Myers creator and legend John Carpenter was on board to direct. There was actually an online poll and it seemed fans of both franchises were up in arms about the movies being made. So it was scrapped even with the knowledge that the similar concept movie Freddy vs Jason was a huge success, so it's staggering that the studios did not chase the money. The story apparently was going to be about Michael Myers as a young boy who's out trick-or-treating when he is given a mysterious box that unleashes the Lord of the Dead, who then possesses Myers, turning him into everybody's favourite William Shatner mask wearing psycho, and is also why he cannot die. Years later, some people decide to burn down the Myers house and find a puzzle box and unleash Pinhead, who then goes after Michael Myers and takes him back to hell, or maybe even attach hooks to Michael Myers' nipples, who knows. The movie was not to be. Would you have liked to have seen this movie? Let me know what your thoughts are.
Well, you suffered long enough watching me go on about Hellraiser in this episode of Groovy Horror, Sci-Fi and Cult Movies. Let me know what you think, and if you've not seen this movie before, don't watch it for the very first time with your mother in the same room like I did. It will become very, very awkward. Bye, I'm off to raise hell.
Come and sit down, Pinhead. Those clothes look a bit tight. What is this thing you have to show me? Show me the sight. Ouch. Ooh, what did you do that for? Sticking those hooks in my nipples makes them kinda sore. Ouch. Ooh, I like it. Ouch. Ooh, no I don't. Ouch. Ooh, stop it now, Pinhead. Ouch. Ooh, hang on a minute. Ouch. Ooh, let me put some leather pants on. Ouch. Ooh, whoopie doobie doo.